Do we have a motion to open the MBTA Community Subcommittee meeting for July 30th, 2024?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Woodhams?
Aye.
Mr. English? Mike McKnight, aye. 3 in favor, no one opposed. Motion carries.
We still need to do roll call votes on everything if we're in person.
It's hybrid.
Okay.
So maybe. I don't know the answer to that.
Most definitely maybe.
Jim Lawrence will not be here today, this evening. So he is stuck someplace on the highway in Maine. And so Mr. English is here as our alternate, already approved and sworn in by the planning board. Do you want to kick off, Rachel, or do you want to defer? Do you have any?
No, it's, you can, I was only asked to provide a spreadsheet and nothing else, so.
And you did.
That's what I did.
I thought maybe we'd start tonight. I, as we were going through these different meetings, I feel like we may not have set the ground rules on our guiding principles and trying to accomplish with this. And so I started drafting this week some ideas on guiding principles. I may or may not have enough, there's some more here. Let's get hand those out to the audience. Thank you. Connor, do you want? Nope, that's fine. I'll send
Add
you.
it to the exhibits.
But maybe. And this is what I came up with, certainly open for edits and comments and questions and adds and deducts, but I wanted to try to set in my own mind, what is it we're trying to do here? Because I wasn't clear. And so I'll give everybody a minute to read it. We could probably read it in the record at some point if anybody's listening. If not, we can add it to, right?
Yeah, somebody did join.
They did. Okay.
Things working.
So they can't hear us yet?
No, they can't. You just can't see them.
Okay. And we can go through each one of these after you get a chance to scan it, and then maybe that'll help the person on the phone. If there's typos or grammar, there likely are, so we'll correct them.
No, the red squiggly line means you did an amazing job. That's what that means.
Spell check said I was 94% on grammar and spelling, so there's something in there, I don't know what it was. And so maybe we can just walk down through these and just to see if people are in agreement, if we have edits or people are not in agreement, so. It's headed proposed guiding principles. And so the first one that I put down was continue to educate ourselves on the law, MBTA guidelines, risks of doing nothing, pending lawsuits in other towns, and then are there others? Are there other things that we should continue either as a subcommittee or a planning board to focus on as we move through the process, hopefully towards a vote at a town meeting?
It's not, I don't know if it's a specific place that we could look for, but maybe to look at other towns who've already adopted it, see what they included in their wish list. You know, we had talked about some towns that were calling for, if you clump all the housing together, that they build parks and, you know, hiking trails and
Yeah.
Almost like a little sub town of its own, to see how that's been approached in other towns. See, I wouldn't even know the first about how to write that and how to make it so that it's feasible, meets all the criteria of the law and all that.
And is there something we can learn that they did creatively that would help us craft something that works for us.
And I don't even know which towns have already gone and approved, or, put this forward.
Apparently a lot of them. But yeah, no, that's a great one. Let's learn from what others have done. And so these are only my opinions and thoughts, so please keep the ideas. If you don't like what's said here, let's talk about it. If you do, we'll add to it like we just did. Find a site or sites that have the least impact on the town character, the town center area, traffic on already congested roads, town water, town services like police, fire, ambulance, and then is there something else? I don't know if anybody who would like to add impact to the town and tax more taxes and more stuff and schools. I thought I had heard through the testimonies that schools had capacity, which is why I didn't put it down, but.
As I recall, elementary school superintendent said when they were doing their population models, because they're applying for money for a new school, that they had taken the possible MBTA impact into account. And they were looking at possibly only adding 50 students. It seemed low, but that was my recollection, and maybe I'm not remembering that, but I'm pretty sure that's what Superintendent Cameron said at town meeting.
Okay.
And then the high school, my recollection is that their enrollment has dropped, so they've actually got fewer students than they had 10 years ago. So they have physical space, but the problem is you bring the students and then you've got to hire more staff, more teachers. So, I mean, they may have the room, so you don't necessarily have to build a bigger building, but you're gonna have to increase your staff.
Okay.
So there is.
So we
some
should add
impact
that.
on it.
Put that in. It is something. Work to find a site or sites that generally comply with the law and guidelines to the extent possible. And the reason I say this is that the underlying assumption is that we may not be able to comply with everything. I think, Rachel, maybe you can help with this. If you look at the law and the guidelines, there's just going to be things as a adjacent community that no matter which site we pick, it satisfies certain parts of it, but maybe not other parts of the law or guidelines. Which is why I put this in, because I'm not sure if we looked at it in total, that every site will meet, the site that we pick will meet every single thing in that bylaw or the law or the guidelines. But I don't know.
Yeah, so you can put it anywhere as an adjacent community without a transit station within a half mile of our boundaries or any of that within our town. You can put it anywhere. But there are guidelines that sort of help narrow down locations. There is also a master plan to help further narrow down your locations. There's also other plans and studies. There's, I think, the open space and rec plan as well to help you avoid areas to narrow down selections.
Okay. In the site selection process, consider a strategy where the units are not developed, units are developed over that a possibility, because if we have 750 units a year from now, all at once, it feels to me like that's going to be a pretty significant challenge. If we could figure out a way to pace it or space it, and I don't know if that's part of the site selection process that we do, kind of put it out there over time somehow. Possibly look at sites that might be harder to build out, but would offer benefit to the town. So we've talked about this at our last subcommittee. Sites that need cleanup, converting junkyards, or other challenging sites that today are not necessarily the best for the town. If we're going to put this in and we're going to have X number of units per acre on X number of acres, could we find sites that actually would be beneficial as they get cleaned up and developed versus where they are today? Consider locating in different parts of town to spread out the density and traffic impacts. I think we talked about that last time too. Are there places we could put it where strategically it's not all generally in the same place, and or on roads that can't accommodate. Consider sites strategically located at the edge of town that allow easy access to adjacent towns' public transportation, Franklin, Walpole, Foxborough, Norfolk. And I have a plan with some sites that I've taken from what Joanna McFarland did last time and added to some of those, so we can talk about some of those sites. Are on the roads that can handle the traffic. So we talked a lot about Route 1A last time from the town center south, which really can't necessarily handle a lot of traffic. So could we put them in an area like Route 140 on the Franklin line, Route 1 up by Foxborough, north on Route 1A possibly, or adjacent to 495 on the Route 1 side, not up on the Route 1A side. Because that 1A bleeds right into the center of town up a pretty narrow road that's pretty character driven, in my opinion, of the town. And are not in West Wrentham or the core center of town. And when I say core center of town, I mean like where it's already developed within, and we can look at a map and see where that would be. But we talked a lot about whether or not the town center zoning would work, and we found out that we don't really get a benefit for that by putting it there.
If you create it as a mandatory mixed-use district, and none of the options that were provided to you, was it ever just a straight MBTA communities multifamily overlay district? It was never proposed as that, because we don't want to lose that 2018 visioning.
Right.
You know, because then it would just be 15 units per acre by right, with no requirement, for the mixed use retail commercial. So it was never, if you wanted to include it to get the unit reduction, it would have to be a separate district. A mandatory mixed use district.
Okay.
You still have to zone for the 50 acres and 15
Someplace
units per acre. It doesn't count towards, all you do is get a 25% reduction. If the state approves it.
Yeah.
But I think we're past that anyway, the timeline for them to review it, so.
Yes, and the idea might be to consider a zoning amendment for town center that has a maximum of 8 units per acre. So that's maybe something we bring to town meeting to lock that in, so that town center zoning can't ever have more than 8 units an acre, which is the development proposal on the table. And then bring the best, least disruptive plan to November town meeting and allow the town members to vote. So based on what I've read, what Rachel's educated me on taking no action and doing things like that, that's probably not in our best interest to take no action, because it is a negative, as you have said. And then it would set us up for challenges around when we could bring something back, potentially. So.
Right, and as I shared with you, Congressman Auchincloss just had made comments that non-compliant communities will lose their federal funding as well. So it's not just state funding, grants, it'll be federal grants, which I also shared with you. The town received a $950,000 grant through Auchincloss's community grant fund for the water quality improvements.
Yeah.
So those would not be available to us. That grant, that funding pool would not be available to us.
Okay, so starting with our subcommittee here, we'll reach out. Thoughts, questions, comments? You see something? Does it make sense to you? Does it not make sense? Are there adds? Are there deducts? You know, can we craft this in a way that helps guide us as to what we're trying to do here in a bit more definitive way than just the bylaw and the guide? Go ahead, Mr.
No, I got nothing. I mean,
You're out of the bullpen tonight, so go.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear. No, this is a complex issue that impacts a rural community, I think in significant ways. Certainly the spirit of this is very good, but execution, I've been baffled, which is why when we first started talking about this, I had suggested no action. Now I find out that that's taken a poison pill. So I think your summary of the guiding principles is excellent. I mean, I would totally agree with that. So.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Mr. Willis. Yeah, well, I've said all along, I think we are irresponsible if we don't propose a plan. And just sit back and wait and see what happens. I think we put the town in a bad spot. It's our responsibility as planning board to come up with the locations. Whether it gets voted up or down at town meeting is beyond our control. Whether it is supported or not supported by other boards in town is also not within our control, and I don't think it should be anything that we spend much time considering. What we need to do is what we as a planning board see as the best route here.
So I think we are beyond that point now. We're saying bring something forward.
Yep.
Now, how do we decide on what to bring forward? So that's what I was trying to capture here.
I still. I have to go back to the initial work that was done where. Rachel, in conjunction with the town hired consultant, looked at the town as a whole and picked out what they felt was best overall strategy. I will fully admit, I don't have the time or the will to go through vetting every single piece of every parcel in town to see if it meets the criteria. They did that for us because we asked them to. And I think my tendency is to want to go with that. Try to do it as completely as we can. But if we want to look at other parcels, then we should do it soon. We should do it.
Look it up the parcels.
Yep. And then,
Good segue.
as far as, the idea of doing it over time, we can't control that. Except from a standpoint of, if we pick out parcels that are going to need significant work to make them buildable, that will slow that process because they won't be able to build units until, if there's environmental cleanup or anything like that, that'll have to get done. That short of specifically cherry picking spots that are like that, I don't know how else we can control how quickly somebody wants to come in and build.
I don't either, and I only put consider, because if there were options out there and you could build a set of sites and you could say, some of these are pretty easy to get done and some of these are pretty hard to get done, maybe we can do that. So taking what Joanne McFarland presented at the end of the last meeting and kind of expanding on that, one of the things I tried to do was, based on those guidelines, I said, okay, what is one of the biggest challenges or benefits of this, right? And it's that if we could put it in locations where it would be closer to the T stations in our adjacent towns, Franklin, Walpole, Norfolk, Foxborough. If we looked at that lens only, where would we put these? To me, that's on the edges of the town, the way I've drawn this out here. And it has another effect, which is it also fits in that 140 can handle it, Route 1 can handle the traffic. Maybe North 1A can handle the traffic heading into Walpole. And it kind of preserves that core, which is in between all this. When I say core center of Wrentham, it's kind of everything between the purple and 495, and then leave West Wrentham off. So I guess if you look at these, Joanna, you were headed down the path of saying there are sites on Route 1. Maybe they're part of our Crisp North, which is more recreational schools, things like that. But there's also Crisp South that maybe somewhere along there, or all the way up into where the Denzo Volvo or just south of there is, there's a piece of property up there on Route 1. So everything on the right side of this could be locations, if we could figure out those sites and figure out if those made sense. So we kind of narrow it down to some site looks on that road. And see where we could put 25 acres, because I think we can do 25 and then potentially 5 5s, although the way I read the bylaw, it says they really like a 50-acre site in total.
You can do 25,
Okay,
You have to
and
have,
then you have to
25
have, then
contiguous.
all has to be contiguous.
okay,
And then you can have 5.
5s. Or any multiple of that up to more, at least 5-acre parcels.
Correct, the smallest is 5.
So the first zone is Route 1, and are there spaces there that we should consider, whether it's Chris South or Chris North? Or up to where I think it's 140 meets the Franklin, the Foxborough town line. Where I think there's solar going in one of those parcels. The other is over by Cushing, industrial park over there on the north side on 1A on the north corner.
yeah, that's about right there is where the solar is. That's right
Right
next
here,
to,
okay.
to Crocker Pond.
So are those sites we should look at and consider, because those meet, you could, with a very straight face, you could say to the state, we have put these locations where it's the closest to the T-station in the next town. I would think they would be a hard pressed to argue that. And we put it on the fringes of town on roads that can accommodate traffic. And if we were smart about it, we put them in maybe 3 different locations, and now it's not one thing in one place that causes any amount of immediate impact in any one area. So Route 1, the top end of 1A. And then the one that was really intriguing to me was the Franklin side of 140 over by the country club, which is, we know we've got a commercial district there. I think somebody had mentioned putting it over the De Placido development that's already there. I think Joanna, you said that. And then on the other side of the street is the big mining pit, which somebody told me, said, well, someday that's gonna stop and it'll fill with water, be a lake. And there's a lot of land over there. So, and it's on the 140 side, Franklin side. There's shopping over there. Do we limit some of the impact to the town by having people go into Franklin or go up into Walpole or kind of off the fringes? Was kind of what I took from the last meeting and then kind of expanded to where would we look for sites?
That, I hadn't looked at that site quite to the extent we did, but that. Including that pit.
It's an R87, I believe, zone, right? 2-acre zoning. I think-
Is it?
The way I read the map, it is, but I wanted to validate that, so.
Right.
How many, I gotta believe there's more than 50 acres over there. In that pit area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or around the pit area.
And then that's 140, and that is geographically, I would guess that's probably the closest location in our entire town to a T-stop. Franklin Center T-stop is the closest thing to that.
Yeah. I don't know how Gillette at the end of one in town would be, but it's pretty close. And Walpole's probably the furthest. I don't know if Norfolk's, well, you could get to Norfolk and Walpole probably about the same. You just see off. So that's as far as I got. And if we could find 25 acres in one spot or 35 acres and then a couple of spots in other places. And look at those and just say, okay, if we overlaid this MBTA communities on top of that. What are the benefits? What are the, does it work? Doesn't it work? I think the commercial zones are a little bit more challenging in that they allow taller buildings. As do the CRISP zones. They allow 5 stories or 6 stories and.
CRISP is the Conservation, Recreation, Schools and Parks, so if they allowed anything more than 2.
CRISP South. It's not CRISP.
That's
It's not
not
CRISP. What is it?
Route 1 South,
You want south?
Wait a minute. Well, maybe you're right. I'm sure you're right, because you're the town planner. You
I
should.
just work here,
I know.
Route 1 south of Thurston is all commercial. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's all
And then
zone
the one,
commercial.
the Route 1 North, it was a little, we restricted some of the uses
Mostly the
because of
green.
the environmentally sensitive areas around Carbon
Yeah.
Pond.
But
okay.
there is still commercial, it's still available for limited commercial development.
Yeah, yeah, and then there is a Chris.
There is Chris
Route 1,
right.
of the what's it there, they're just junkyards right now.
So could we start at the bottom right of this page and just take a look at that, what's hatched there and say, is that something worth considering? What are the pros and cons? Just kind of walk through each one of these corners and see if there's anything that we say, hey, that we never thought, when you mark that out, it didn't meet this criteria.
Bottom right. Has easy access to 495, easy access to commercial areas in Plainville. It's, that's basically the end of my street.
Yes.
And there's talk of there being more commercial development going in there, in that area,
Is a market.
in
basket.
Plainville.
Okay.
Technically, it's not Wrentham.
Okay,
It's talking about. But, the long mentioned market basket, whether that actually comes to fruition, I don't know. So, I mean, that's got those things going for it. It's easy access to 495.
and if you went up Route 1, you could get to the Gillette T station.
Yeah.
Right, okay,
The downside is anytime there's any kind of a function at Gillette, access in and out of there is difficult.
We have business and commercial zones. Do they actually prohibit residential development in them? And can we go ahead and put an overlay, which is residential, over a commercial business? It sounds to me to be contradictory.
Overlay zoning, which these are, they can be either less restrictive or more permissive. Agreed, that's how I feel, but it's whatever, the town wants to do.
But it's a good-
They spend too much time realizing that the fact can't be done. So I just want to raise.
it's a great question, guy, the same thing, it's how would you put, although commercial. How would you put a residential in a commercial zone? So we don't really have zone, the underlying zoning isn't there. It's allowed by right in the overlay district. So you'd have to use the setbacks.
So the overlay district is almost its own district. And if they want to do a multifamily project, they have to adhere to the multifamily overlay district regulations.
And you would create those
Correct.
setbacks,
They
heights.
can't pick and choose between the underlying and the overlay.
Okay,
It's one or the other.
okay. So we would be setting up our table of requirements on lot coverage and setbacks. And
Correct. And so, once you find these areas, you then have to put all of those parcels into that compliance spreadsheet. And then each of them, if they've got wetlands, that gets taken out of, and so you have to run all of those parcels through that compliance spreadsheet to make sure that you've got the 50 acres, 15 units per acre average,
Or
so
25 at 50,
Whatever, yeah.
whatever it is.
50 total.
50
However
total,
you break it up.
15 units per acre average. So
Because the others,
keep that in mind.
the other piece of property, I think, that is in that zone is not the junkyard, the truck parts. Right?
Right.
And if we took 25 acres of that and overlaid it, maybe that solves, that maybe creates the overlay in an area that could use cleanup eventually when it gets developed, and it's a benefit.
Yeah, again, my only question is why are you putting residential on a road where there's been multiple deaths just in the time that I've been here? And now you're adding a use that's at a different time than commercial is, so.
That
That would be
road
my
is a
only
commuter
concern,
road
you know?
anyways.
Sorry?
I said that road's a commuter road anyways, Route 1. I mean, in the morning, it's in the evening.
Yeah.
Because
How
you,
many, of those people who are actually driving into work now too, and not just working from home?
maybe we're putting it in commercial because the road network can handle it. It's adjacent or near a commuter stop. And it could help us in that area to diversify what's there. if you're only gonna put it in the town center zone and make an overlay, then we're gonna maybe screw up the town center zone. And I'm not talking about the development that's in front of us in the planning board, but something else. Is there any, other than what you just described, Rachel, is there any other huge downside to that area? And that's two district, that's two,
What, again, this is a, you guys will go through it. As to what you feel is the pros or cons of it.
I'm asking you, I'm just asking generally, is there any downside to not looking at that? Other than what we just described, it's commercial district and how do you overlay, which we can potentially do in our charts of.
Yeah, I was just double checking if I want to say something came out, Pembroke had tried something similar recently, so I was just trying to find that on my,
Yeah, I just wanted you to clarify. Overlay district cannot be more restricted.
it can be more or less restrictive,
It can be more or less.
correct? So like our aquifer protection overlay district is more restrictive with a 15% impervious coverage, as well as there's certain uses that can't be done within an aquifer protection district, and that's an overlay. And pretty much, lucky for Wrentham, you get all of your drinking water within your boundaries, but that makes pretty much all of Wrentham a sensitive area, so. That's something that will be, whatever you put into this compliance, that 15% impervious will go into that restriction as well, which is good for you guys as well, too.
I was just thinking, we have the 40B just across the street from that up in the Ledgeview, so we do have housing there, we have. Yeah. The only housing?
40B,
Is there
which
a hotel there?
waives
There are two
all of the
hotels.
zoning.
Two hotels, there's 40B, assisted living wouldn't put traffic, anything on the street, but.
But keeping in mind, 40B is a different type animal where you waive all of the zoning within that district, so.
But there is multi-unit housing in that area already, even though it's under a different
Yeah.
part of the zoning law. I mean, there's residential
Yeah, on the
right up to, basically right up to Route 1. There's residential on Route 1 and as part of the Gordon property. There's what, 3 houses there, I think?
Yeah, and then you cross Route 1 and just off the pink, it's all residential back there.
May I add one consideration to the list, the proposed guiding principles?
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, and I didn't open it up for the public, sorry about that. Right.
I'd like to add that we should consider what type of zoning we might be using if the overlay goes into effect. Because like Rachel's been telling us, the underlying zoning will no longer be in play.
It's still in play, but the person, they can either adhere to the underlying or the overlay.
Right.
They can't mix and match.
However,
If they wanna do an earth removal project, they can still go forward and do an earth removal. If they do
Yes.
wanna do a 6-story commercial building in the C3, they can still do that.
However, if we do the MBTA zoning and put that as an overlay on a 43B project, do we lose those numbers?
We
What
can't
numbers?
do that,
The-
can we?
Right,
No, we
right?
can't include 40B in the overlay.
I don't think.
And then, so the other consideration, I believe on the Norfolk line up there around Cushing, I'm sorry, I don't recall what we named that zoning, but it was a red light district that was specifically put up.
There's an
there.
adult,
If we do the-
Adult, yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Adult
what the,
entertainment district, and
I
that's
see you the
also,
marijuana
it's
one
also the
too, right?
medical marijuana district.
If we do the overlay there, do we lose that underlying zoning if they choose to make that MBTA
Oh,
zone?
good question.
And then do we have to find a new place to put that zone, right?
that,
So,
again, I mean, it's an overlay. They can take advantage of whichever ones they want. I mean, we have an adult entertainment and marijuana there now. They're.
But we don't
overlapping.
lose that. She's saying if we overlay it, we don't, and they build apartments, we don't have to find another place for that.
No, because I mean,
Okay.
medical marijuana and an adult uses are completely two different things. They were enacted many years apart. And the town chose to put them in the same exact location.
Yes, we did.
And if we, the overlay district there, and someone decides to take advantage of the MBTA overlay, It's not like they say, okay, well, if you put apartments in, now you've got to find a new place for your medical marijuana and your adult, and we've already got it.
Yeah,
We've already established it, and that was our compliance with the law. What happens?
based on the information that is available,
Hmm.
it doesn't seem that.
Which
Might be good.
being the state could change next week, as we've.
Do we know how many, so we'll go through acres in a second, but. That's
Just like
that's a really good one for that piece especially.
If somebody built something in the adult entertainment district that was not adult entertainment, we don't lose that overlay just because somebody built something that doesn't.
Yeah, there's multiple uses that are existing in
Yeah.
that area that are not
That's just.
medical
something-
marijuana or adult entertainment.
What they could do though, let's say that's 50 acres. I don't know if it is. They could take 40 of those acres and build MBTA community and take 10 of those and build adult entertainment and medical marijuana on the other 5 or 10.
Yeah.
So you could have those sitting next to each other, which may or may not be, I don't know. Do you know how many acres? I think it's a C district, right? That corner we're talking on the bottom right. There's 2 colors. Do you have anything that tells us how many acres are in each one of those colors?
No,
Likely, it's more than 50 acres.
probably.
As you move up, I think we get into what you're saying is you move into the Chris district, which is,
This is also the first time I'm seeing this too, so I don't have any numbers. I'm gonna have no numbers for you.
wasn't done till, wasn't being worked
Okay.
on until
I know, right,
this
I,
afternoon.
my ESP was broken.
You
My
didn't,
crystal ball
you didn't,
It was in the shop.
you didn't need it because it wasn't done until 4:30. So that could be a possible zone, and we could look at some number of acres there, whether it's all of it or part of it as an overlay district. Anybody seeing any reason why we couldn't look at it?
No, and I did think of one other positive to placing it there. Although the map cuts off, I do believe that that property goes all the way down to he's got access to Madison Street south of Route 1.
Yes.
And so if they were to build apartments in there, they could build an access to that part of Madison Street, which comes to an already signalized intersection. That's right near 495.
There could be 2 signalized entrances if they could get through the Commerce.
Commerce Way, yeah.
They could get that way or
Yeah, they
maybe
could get,
down.
well, yeah, they would have to, yeah, they would need to, yeah, they could do it that way.
Concern might be is that Madison then is a straight shot up into the center of town on a road that's thin and.
Oh, trust me, I don't want to put more traffic on
Yeah.
Madison Street.
No,
It's not, but I'm trying to think beyond
Yep.
my own selfish.
Also,
Desires.
I guess, why don't you want people to come to your downtown and patronize your downtown?
you do. It's a question. I think it only depends on how many units are there. There's 750 units that have direct access across the street to Madison to the center of town. I don't know if that's the best road to throw all that traffic on. That's why I'm trying to think
Isn't that-
about
But
how do
aren't they gonna be going up to, Route 1 to get to the, Foxborough commuter rail?
Yeah.
Okay,
Route 1.
yeah, 'cause I thought that we were still on the Madison Route 1 area.
Right,
Okay.
but he's saying that if people there were gonna go to our center of town, it would be up Madison, putting extra traffic on Madison, which is already.
Okay,
So that might be one of the, why nots.
And also another question.
Yes, sir.
I realize the idea of putting it in the commercial area is, yes, it doesn't get built. But let's suppose it does get built. To me, that would be a bad situation for the town of Wrentham. Because what we're doing is having somebody destroy a business or commercial entity take that off the tax rolls and replace it with residential. Commercial business are tax positive, they produce income for the town. Residential is a tax negative, you have to pay to go ahead and provide services to the people. So I think the town would end up losing taxes if by chance ever got developed in those business areas. My sense.
I would only say that I'm not trying not to build. I'm trying to put it in an area where it makes sense to build, if it is going to get built. And then that's a developer saying, I'd rather put residential in than commercial. I understand your point.
Okay.
I'm not trying to make this, I'm trying to find sites that we can look at, and not 100 of them, but a smaller number of sites that we could look at and say, could these be better options based on everything we're trying to talk about here than the ones that we have on the table, which is Route 1A and Town Center, I think were the two originally recommended. And I'm not saying they're bad sites. I'm just saying, if we look at it a little bit differently, where could we put it that it would make sense for us? I think Madison Street's a negative potentially, and I think taking commercial away from a tax perspective. So we can put those pros and cons on each one of these and then say, let's focus our attention on this one or these two instead of this one in the corner. So I think it's a very valid point, but
I found the Pembroke, Attorney General's sort of reading on their, zoning changes, and they tried to do exactly what we're doing or what you're considering, of putting it under a medical marijuana and adult entertainment district. And the AGO, while they weren't providing, they're only reviewing whether or not the bylaw is sound and not frivolous. That's the EOHLC then reviews the actual bylaw. They did note that could be a potential red flag for EOHLC. In reviewing that, and that they should probably amend that location.
But we of course don't know if it would be, because it's a judgment call by the OHLC, and on Monday they might say it's perfectly fine there, and Tuesday look at it and
Yeah,
say.
well, in this one,
"Oh, no."
they say, well, if you're comparing, they used good for families and permitted as of right, suitable for families with children and permitted as of right. And it compared the other uses that were in those districts that were allowed by site plan approval only. Again, I think that's very little in this town. Everything is by special permit, but, and I think that's also where they sort of were like, again, this was,
Okay, I mean, that's.
just giving you.
yeah,
Okay, well, I mean, that's at least gives an explanation as to why it's that suitable for families with children next to the red light district.
Yeah.
I like the fact on that corner when it's next to NASCAR, that's great for families, so we win on that one. All right, so let's move up Route 1. I don't know if putting it in, Chris, the way it's defined, we'd want to put housing in that district because of the way it's defined, but let's discuss it. You had there was an idea of that. Could it happen? Should it happen? Is it a place for it?
So there's only 2 properties I think that are actually Chris, the rest are commercial north and commercial south.
Right.
Those Chris properties are a total of maybe 7 acres tops, but I don't actually know. Off the top of my head.
Okay,
The rest is commercial.
commercial. Further up, now is that where,
It's less permissive commercial than the Route 1 South, but it is still commercial. That's how we zone it so that it would be lower impact commercial type businesses, smaller businesses, not.
kind of up where I have the line coming off of the Air to Foxborough line, there's an orange bar and a yellow bar of zoning?
Yeah, the orange was the former highway commercial district.
Oh.
That's no longer there.
I got a new map tonight, so. Apologize for that. So are you thinking up in the northern corner here before it crosses into Foxborough?
Yes, so
Or,
from that northern corner, there's a total of 7 acres, and I believe that's the Chris stuff that's currently junkyards. And the reason we put it into Chris when we did Route 1 rezoning was to try to get junkyards away from that Crosby pond.
Mhm.
Because I believe, like Rachel said, that's Attleboro's drinking water, so we don't keep that clean. I'm not a developer, so I don't know whether homes would be cleaner than a junkyard, but my assumption would be that yes, so we'd be moving in a positive direction. But again, there's only 7 acres there, and then it's split with a little tiny piece of state property that comes in, that's part of the state forest. And then there's another, I think, 30-something acres that continue up all the way to Thurston Street.
All the way to
There are a
third.
lot of homes there already, so it's already,
Yeah.
some residential, even though it is a commercial zone.
So it fits some of those models, which is closer to T Station, can handle the traffic. Might be worth considering. And then further up is an R43, I think, and there's some space there that might be worth considering.
I mean, one of the advantages to this is if somebody were to build in that area, they'd have to do some environmental cleanup. So that would be an advantage in that we get somebody to clean up that's directly across from a conservation area.
Is that in the green, Chris? And I'm sorry, I have the wrong map, so if you want to look at the right one. It's this one. Is this, are you talking in this green here? Or in these pinks, which
I
are,
was looking more on the north side.
okay,
I didn't really get too far south, just because
Those are commercials, and kind of like Leo was mentioning, we don't really want to take away from our commercial tax base. So I stopped looking after Thurston Street because the next piece of property was fewer than 5 acres. And so, we need 5-acre parcels at least, or next to, and I think there's a Mass Electric in there too that.
I
breaks
saw
things
that
up
on your
there.
sheet, yeah.
But again, if we were looking to get 5-acre parcels, or a few of them, maybe we can pull 7 or 10 or 15 acres out of this zone.
And then a little,
Five acres doesn't have to be one
One part, right?
piece of property as currently owned. I mean, we can, 5 acres could be
Right.
4, 5 1-acre parcels right next to each other, it's a total of 5.
So after.
It's up to somebody else to figure out how to combine the ownership of it and then build there if that's what they choose to do.
After Thurston, we've got that new gas station, right? And then becomes all the old cranberry bogs. So that gas station, I don't believe is more than 5 acres, and once we hit the cranberry bogs, I thought the math would be too difficult to try to figure out. You need a lot more land, because that's all unbuildable. Bit. And then you get into, where's the truck parking lot and then supercharged and all that, if you want to rezone supercharged, I don't.
so maybe north is better, you're saying. On Route 1 heading
Right,
to
the less
Foxborough.
developed, the currently underdeveloped that could use a cleanup.
Thoughts? That, and maybe as you go further up, to, what is the name of that street? Where the streets, it's this parcel back here. So that is, that's where Dezell is, isn't it? In here? Where the solar farm is going? or-
Those just into.
Just up,
Foxborough,
okay.
just
So it's up in
over.
there.
It's actually technically.
So there might be a couple of areas up on that Route 1 north, and maybe those are better to look at than the route, than down south here.
Yeah, this is East Street coming from Chase Lumber's up in here.
Is this where the trailer park is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the trailer park down close to 140 and then back up, but I think there's wetlands in there too, but they're not. It's not,
There might be some, I don't
there's
think.
some, but it's
Because
not,
this property from Route 1 down to 140 does this.
Hmm.
So I don't think there's a lot of low-lying areas and
I mean, that could be a 5 or 8 or 10 acre parcel if it was a piece that we wanted to look at, those two. And then as you move up, so we talked a little bit about the end of Route 1A and the commercial, and then the overlay district for, I mean, the medical marijuana and the other one.
Well, sounds like that would probably not work out. Because we have those overlays there. That would sort of negate the good with, for families with children. So. So that may not,
There is some land on the other side of 1A from that. Maybe again, not the best. And I think from a traffic standpoint, it's a little tougher than Route 1 or even 140, so maybe that's not the right one to look at.
yeah, because we also got a dangerous intersection right at the bottom of that hill too, with
Yeah.
1A and Winter Street, North Street.
The pole doesn't stay up for more than 3 weeks at a time, does it? The blinker.
Yep.
If we turn the corner to the Franklin piece up against Franklin. There is some commercial in there. We had somebody interested in doing that. Actually, they wanted to change the zoning to residential and come off of the road in Franklin to that development, which we kind of said. We don't like the idea of our residential being accessed for bus and trash and.
Right.
Remember that one?
Because if you have if you have residential and they look to make, they put a subdivision in there. That's gonna come off of a road in Franklin. And they're looking for town acceptance, and then how
Oh, no, we wouldn't have, yeah, it wouldn't be accepted.
Right,
Yeah.
because if you don't have access to it from,
Private road.
yeah,
Everything else in that corner is residential, isn't it? On the other side of the river, basically. So it's kind of an odd piece of property. We've had some interest in developing it, but not for commercial, for residential. So is that either one of those sides of the street, the one of the sand pit or the commercial? Looking at putting a fairly, maybe you put a couple of them, you put.
They are putting, I think Howard Bailey is actually, so that's that area you get into the behind, Park Place subdivision that's going on now. But then over in Norfolk side, Howard Bailey is doing another, residential subdivision in this area, so.
I mean, could we think about putting something, I don't know, 10 acres on that side of the road and 25 acres on this side of the road, and then maybe using something up on Route 1 and building out the other 5 acre parcels or something like that. So it's, now you've got this 750 units split in side of town, closest to the T stations, good roadways. And it's spread out from not just being one development in one spot.
Can I ask, what's the difference between 140 and 1A? Where you're saying it can handle the traffic, what's the difference between the two in your mind? As to why one can handle it and the other can't?
So when we talked about the outlet mall, we talked about down south, we talked about Wampum Corner, I just felt that when you come into town that way, that street, to me, it's a normal street, but it's always busy. And so adding more traffic to that by putting all the units down in that area of town. To then drive that road up into the center of town, to me, you'd have to do something with the road, but.
Or you could have them build the rail trail as well, to try and promote multimodal, different types of access.
Yeah.
I mean, we did just receive the design engineering grant with Walpole and Norfolk to do design engineering for Metcon. All the way to Depot Street.
I mean,
And
if
then
you,
from, I think Chestnut Street, there's a couple of private ownerships, but then it does turn into all of, one right of way.
I mean, we could consider it. I just, we talked about somebody had thrown out the mall and then that got a lot of legs and I'm saying, well. That could be developed pretty easily by Simon. If they had a reduction in rents and they wanted to lop off a third of their thing, then they take 50 acres and they build, I think that could be built. Quick, and that's a lot of traffic coming up into town. Now, if we said, maybe we want to take the development that's being cleared for gravel. And make 5 acres of that part of this, maybe 5 acres at 75 units in that part of town, but that's all. And the other stuff is
I don't
spread
think
out.
it can be just a portion of a larger acre. I think it has to be. All parcels have to be within it. Maybe, but
You couldn't just take a piece of a
Yeah.
parcel.
I'll have to take, I'll look
It has to be,
deeper
it
into
has to be
that.
at least one complete parcel or multiple parcels.
I've
but
read it
couldn't
can't be portions of
portions of a
parcels,
parcel,
yeah,
okay.
so, but.
So you'd either have to, we wanted to put that in as a parcel, it would have to be all or nothing.
Yeah, but I can, I will forward you the language and you guys can interpret it on your own.
How big is the across from the outlets? The retail that never was open.
Till it never was.
Yeah, I think it was, when we last looked at it, it was between, maybe 20, or maybe a little over 20.
But again, you'd have to create that if you want, and I wouldn't.
And we do have somebody that does want to do, multifamily on that property as well. That's approached us. So,
Is it zoned for it?
no. So they need a zoning change
To
Or
me,
an overlay.
or an overlay, yep.
bringing, so if you did 20 or 25 acres at 15 units an acre. 400 units or something, that's just an enormous amount of traffic that would have to take. If they
Well,
wanted
Thank
to,
you for thinking of me when I'm getting into work. I appreciate that. Because that's the road I use. Thank you.
I think it's a great street, it's eclectic, I think it's what the town was kind of founded on, it's got all kinds of different houses and just. Then to figure out if you're gonna have to widen that street. Or if you're going to just burden that street with so much traffic coming from the south. To me, it's just a hard sell. And it's easy, it's got a sewer treatment plant on the outlets. That could go, those units could go up and off.
Yeah, I have heard that it's easier to redevelop single family, not single story retail into multifamily
So-
apartments, so.
Part of the reason I put those down was I was trying to preserve. The integrity of the town. In its core, and to me, if you put a lot of houses south and they have to come up Route 1A into the center of town. It won't be the same character, of the town won't be the same. That's just my opinion.
Or you could get, something good out of it and have them, expand and actually develop that Metacomet Greenway even further. So, there's two sides to it.
I'd rather not have traffic than try to figure out how many people are gonna take the Metacomet that aren't gonna drive, but. I mean, I like the idea of a rail trail, but I wanna not impose traffic on the town center. If we can help it. We're already gonna have the downtown center zoning that's going to add. Traffic and put something else that's big, that's gonna drive traffic through the center of town, I think it's just gonna destroy. That intersection up there, but it's my opinion on it.
But if you, and I mean. I understand what you're saying. Where. Practically speaking, where could you put it in the town that it's not gonna drive traffic to the center of the town?
On the fringes. I think you limit the amount
Like
of,
everybody, in your
time.
scenario, everybody is driving to downtown,
That's my question.
so.
Right, are they?
Even on the edge, well, I don't know.
If they're
You're saying-
commuting,
I
right.
mean, again, even on the Madison Street one, you're saying they're gonna come up Madison to go to downtown.
if.
I mean, that's great. I love people coming to downtown. It's beautiful, and especially with the new development that's gonna happen.
But
That's
what's,
awesome.
what's. Compared. The Franklin line area to the. 495 outlet, that whole
So down
area,
here,
right? What's driving traffic from there that's not driving traffic from there?
I think there's a lot of, in Franklin, there's 2 supermarkets,
Okay.
there's the T station.
495 right there, you go up, you jump up one exit onto King Street, and
Exactly.
you're right in
That's
Franklin.
what I think.
If they're going to grocery stores, they're not gonna go by way of Wrentham Center, they're gonna go. If I have to go there half the time, I will go down Route 1 and take 495 over to Franklin, as opposed to driving through the center of Wrentham. From Madison's, I think that the access to 495 down by the area of the outlets is I don't think that is gonna drive traffic into the center of town. If you don't think that's gonna drive traffic into the center of town because it'll go towards Franklin, I don't think that will,
Well,
because it's 495,
It's
right?
it's one of the items. The other is that we're spreading out the units in different corners of the town versus it all being dropped
I'm not
potentially
saying,
down here.
I'm not saying we should drop it all there.
I'm not saying we shouldn't put something down there. I guess the question is, what's the order of magnitude of what we should put there?
If I were to put something down there, I would not put it on the outlets spot, I would put it on the land around it. Across the street, you may know better than I.
I mean, take 10 acres and do
The
it, but
commercial,
maybe
the
not.
commercial area that never was,
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah.
Is that directly abut the Armitage property?
yes.
Okay, so you could take the commercial area that never was, and the Armitage property, which is former salvage yard, which we probably could use some cleanup,
Mhm.
right?
Where is that on the map, Vic? Is that down over here?
Yep, that's right in this area, right in
Okay.
here. Yep, it's a former
Right?
auto salvage yard.
Nice.
And it would be. I'd be curious what the acreage would be if you included, and the Armitage wasn't huge. But if you combine that with this property here. Like I said, with 495 being there, I'm guessing that. A huge percentage of the people, if they're driving somewhere to go to work, they're not going up Route 1, Route 1A in through the center of Wrentham, they're gonna hop on 495. Or down 495 to 95 and go in that way. Or even down 495 to Route 1 or something like that. I think. I would be less concerned with this driving traffic into the center of town than the area from Wampum Corner to 495 driving center. Okay.
I can-
Only get, and Wampum Corner is already a hot button.
Yeah.
It's already a tough spot traffic wise. And I agree, we don't want to force more traffic down that way, but I think we're less likely to have it from there than we are from here.
So then might be a question of that site, how many acres is it, how many units would we want to put there?
Right.
As one option, or part of a strategy, we look at Route 1 North. Are you, as far as the 25-acre parcel? Would you consider putting it in?
I would consider that to be a viable option. I would consider if we get 25 out of that, I would consider that to be.
25. I have to do this in my head because I can't, it's too late. 15 times 25 acres, 375 units.
Can I interrupt
Potential.
real quick? How do you envision this going in a proposal at town meeting? Do you think it's going to be one MBTA zone with one package, I guess, with a piece here, a piece there, a piece there, or are we gonna vote on each of the pieces separately? Because
Oh, God, we can't.
I don't think you can do that. I think
I don't
Because it
think you
has-
can, because at any point, if anyone doesn't make it, then you're not. in
you're not making your
compliance.
50 acres. It has to be.
I think it's one proposal, but
so then that's kind of my fear is I'm wondering if there's a way we can float this to residents and see, just a quick hot poll before we go too far down and, into any of these. Cause I'm afraid that if one of these is gonna sink the whole ship. If the people in West Wrentham, Wampum Corner say absolutely no way, you can't do anything in that area because it's already too congested. And going back to the question of why from Franklin versus from Wampum Corner, because the Route 1A is much more narrow than 140. So, you can handle a bicyclist and a walker on 140, you definitely cannot. If somebody is riding their bike and running on the sidewalk, cars are going 20 miles an hour trying to squeeze by. Then God forbid you get an emergency vehicle or something, so. I just, from talking to neighbors, I know that Wampum Corner area and anything down it. And I know we're gonna push people to the 495, but we're also gonna have them coming to church and to soccer practice and to school and to all the other things that families do, and this is family housing. So, it just seems to me that 140 has more room to work with if we needed to make turn lanes or something else than South Street does.
I mean, we have
Do
to,
any of that without the
We're
state
doing some
anyway.
Stormwater stuff out there, and there's not a lot of, when we're trying to put in some stormwater on the Lake Archer side. There's not a lot of room to play with, for stormwater stuff, so I would be concerned about, adding turning lanes and things like that, cause. Yeah, it looks wide, but I think that's the end, that is all you have to play with, just from what I've seen for that Lake Archer area.
You're talking about right along the
Yeah,
way, from
yeah.
like Nikki's around to the high school.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
nothing there. It's straight down to the lake.
Yeah, periscope houses.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
true. Well, it does fit though, if you said, let's say Route 1 South isn't, because it's all commercial. And you said you want to do Route 1 North, you want to do 140 over there, and you want to do something down here. Maybe the bigger parcel is over on the 140 side, because there's that big chunk of land that's zoned R87. And it's got the pit in there, so maybe that takes longer to develop, right?
Yep.
And that's the 25-acre parcel, and then these are 12 acres each or something that you
However
can
you
parse
want to divide them
together.
up. Yeah, sure.
And now they're in 3 different spots in the town.
So it's
One
not
coming, so if
concentrated
we're
all in one area.
talking about traffic, you got people coming from here, here, and here. Coming in if they are, or they're going up Route 1, out 140 and down to 495.
Right. That might be a better.
I do agree there's a risk that if one sinks, but we can also say to them, the alternative is 150-acre parcel with 750 units, then it's going somewhere if we don't break it up.
And then what about just putting the overlay over the already developed Eagle Brook? Cause there's already housing there. This doesn't have to be virgin undeveloped land.
Right.
So. I know Norfolk rezoned their whole town center because they don't expect anything to be built since it's already built out.
Sorry.
Are those owned properties or are they leased or are they rented properties?
All of the above, I believe.
Well, also Norfolk is a different animal because they have a train station and they have to, by this law guidelines, they have to put it within a certain.
Within a half mile.
Within a half mile of that station, so, I'm just cautioning, that comparison, they had to.
If it's all one, if we have to consider it all one to put something on it, then that's probably too big a parcel. If you can't break a parcel, maybe that's why we can't do it there.
Which one?
The Placido's development.
Eagle Brook?
Eagle.
Well,
If you've got that whole thing,
They're all single family, homes.
well, that's what I asked. Are they owned, are they rented, or are they leased?
It's a mix, that whole development is a mix. Some is over 55, some is ownership, and some is rental.
and there's part of it up there that is 40B too, so
The
that,
whole project
The
is
whole-
40B, yeah. It's like 3 different,
Is it really?
yeah.
I thought the initial development that he put in there was not done under 40B, and then he did some additional housing under 40B.
That may have been how it was originally proposed, but I have records showing that it's at
The
least
entire
3
thing
different,
is-
all of the housing that is up there is under a 40B.
So if we put the overlay,
Because that is all commercial, I mean, that's a commercial zone in that area.
so if we put the overlay there, then we lose the 40B numbers, right?
I don't know, that is
That's the only
I,
thing we can-
again, I wouldn't put it past the state, I would
At
be,
this
I would
point?
be concerned.
Sure, yeah.
But you have
Like I
the
said, they're
commercial
gonna
next
keep
to
moving
it,
the goalposts.
and you have the R across the street from it, so that could be a possibility. If it was owned property by the Placido and they were rented, I wouldn't put it past somebody at some point to say, you know what, I know I built these things, but I'm gonna tear them down, I'm gonna put 15 units an acre on here, I'm gonna make a lot more.
Yeah.
So you'd have to look at that parcel and say, what are individually owned properties that everybody would have, you'd have to buy versus the Placido owning, 50 units that if we put the overlay over, he could go in and redevelop that into.
Well, yeah, and again, the argument is, what's the difference between having somebody compile all these separate parcels as opposed to the one on, Route 1A as well? Because I know that was also an argument of somebody cobbling together those. It's gonna happen quickly. So I'm just, the argument's out there, so. that's also could happen this way too, so somebody could do that.
So I think the counter argument would be that these are much newer units and they're way up there in that value.
So I mean, but those rentals, that rental unit is, those are all, they're still being built actually right now, duplexes. You know, those are all brand new, so say, that's the same, the argument. Somebody could come in and level them.
I'm only one vote, but if it's Wampum Corner from 495 to the center of town, I would vote no. I just don't see that as an area where we want to put 15 units an acre on any parcel of land. Just my own opinion, but if we can get it strategically placed, I think it actually could be good.
And also just understand that Wrentham doesn't have sewer. Everything is on-site septic. And so these will have to be, you know, wastewater treatment facilities. And, you know, case in point, the downtown here, I think that's what, 300, about 300 units. I think it's about an acre of an area, and if we want to upsize it to maybe include more of the downtown, a little bit more, but I think that was about an acre parcel.
For the sewer treatment?
For the sewer treatment, so that takes away from the developable area. The state understands that, they're not dinging you for that. They're not saying, oh, you still have to get it in that more confined space.
Right.
And then also water too, as we know, water is always an issue here. If they have to do wells, that takes away from developable area. I'd be more concerned with the septic, because there is a lot of ledge if you drive by. Well, I mean, the Wampum area, I drive by there all the time. There is a lot of ledge, right, very visible. So I'm sure there is a plethora of that further in, too. And also this area too, we already know the Elysian Street, has lots of gravel, so. Good or bad, you could, so that's just in determining the size of the septic, system.
Well, you get size and
Better flow rates too.
they get the size that they would need to build and the associated cost of building it. You know, not only the size of the area that they'd have to set aside for it, which would be unbuildable for housing units, but just the cost of building and maintaining. And if you had to do it in 3 separate spots as opposed to one where you could, you know, one convenient place where you have one sub. Yeah, you're right, that it is to our advantage that we don't have sewers in the town.
Yeah, and the smaller sites, if you've got 5-acre sites, they gotta deal with setbacks. And all the requirements on each one of those versus 150-acre parcel, you're dealing with
Get
setbacks.
one setback around the.
On
Yeah,
50-acre,
that's it.
50-acre setback, so.
Right.
Well, again, everything that you put into, you can't, you have to run everything that you want in that compliance model. And so, you know, they have to prove, the proof has to be 15 units per acre average between all of these 6 districts, or however many you're doing as well.
No, I'm saying you could, maybe we look at these, and maybe we have to do some more work offline before the next meeting and figure out what site we want to look at.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard it is to throw the compliance model, but if we said, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw something out, the Franklin Street R87, or the Franklin, against the Franklin line, adjacent to the golf course. Could we say, can we run a model that says 25 acres of that is one spot? Because we have to have a minimum of 25. That seems like one of the better places to put it if we're gonna put stuff around the town. My opinion.
Lyceum is a very narrow, winding road, yes,
An understatement.
Well, they'd have to upgrade
Really
it.
have to
you
be-
know.
They'd probably have to put a light at the end of
Okay,
it,
so, they're gonna have to upgrade 1A if they do the Duddy
Don't
property
care
as
about
well.
Elysium Street, though,
You
it's
know?
off the center of town. 1A goes right through the center of town. I'm not
Okay.
trying to be difficult, but I
No,
just,
but 140 does too.
and 140 is a state road that's nice and
So
wide, it's got sidewalks.
1A is also a state road.
Not
And they-
downtown.
Yes, there's only a small portion from
Right.
the intersection to over, I think, May Street is that the town owns.
Yeah.
We have all the
Right.
data,
I don't.
Right here
as
is
far as-
downtown. It's not state road.
No, so from the intersection of
Intersection
Franklin
to-
here to May Street is where the town owns and operates. Everything else is state highway.
I thought it was at the split with Shear Street.
And I thought, yeah.
You've already done all the work
I'm sorry,
on,
I thought that was May Street. You're right, that's for, May Street is up further. Yeah,
Yeah,
No,
it's
you're
at the
right.
split.
right at the high school.
you
Yes,
don't have to do
you're right.
anything else on Wampum, you've already done, that's one of your options, it's already in the books.
Well,
already
no,
an
I'm not,
option.
no,
No, I'm
even
just
the
saying.
Patty Armitage property, I'm making that same argument for that property as well. You're still gonna have to upgrade those, that roadway. Yeah, of one
What's
A,
Elysium Street, is that over by that's over by the pit?
yes.
Yeah.
It's the access.
Then that's the developer has to upgrade that and maybe have to put a light at 140 and all that is part of the development cost. And
It's part of the development cost in any project though, for this, because it's part of your site plan approval
right, but it's way out there,
requirements.
way out there and nobody travels Elysium Street unless you're going to the lake or you're going to the,
Or those homes over there.
yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, there's a cottage lots over there.
We don't have any idea how big this lot is down here that Chuck's talking about, do you? Down south, the way the
If you were
dump yard
to
is.
take the commercial area that never was and combine with the Armitage property,
Oh, the Duddy property.
study property. Yes.
Like I said,
Can you make it 10
I
acre?
already said it was, I think I remember it being 20 acres
Yeah, I
the
was
last
gonna
time we
say,
talked
that
about
was at
it.
least 20 and
It
then.
was at least
and then-
20,
And then
and then-
Armitage is another
I think that's like.
7 or 8,
Yeah.
something like that, yeah.
Is it-
Former Matthew, just add one thing. The total has to be 50 acres. One of them has to be 25. I mean, you're saying 5. You could have 25, 15, and 10.
Absolutely.
You limit yourself to just 3 sites. You don't have to spread yourself out to 5 or 6
Correct,
sites.
right.
Because the more you do, the harder it is to get it done.
We right now, I think we have 3 areas we're focusing on. One is Route 1 North. The other is over by 140 towards the golf course and then down, maybe something down on
What's,
below 495.
sorry, what was the other one? I've got the bird property earth removal site, which is off of Elysium.
So either the De Placido site, this commercial or this, something over here.
Sorry, I have to write it down as well, the Placido site, and then point again, sorry.
The commercial district over here. Or
Which, the commercial district,
this is this is Franklin, this is
Yeah, yeah.
140. Or,
talking about Industrial Road over on one.
no, is that industrial? Maybe it is. It's,
I only look at maps all the time, you know, but I could.
Industrial Road, that's where my mechanic is.
Oh,
Don't make him find a new place.
No.
I like him.
It's not
Okay.
find good mechanics.
Industrial Road back to the Norfolk line, maybe.
So De Placido site and industrial,
Or better yet, maybe the parcels of land that are in this undeveloped 40 R87, I think it is. R87.
That's a huge hole in the ground. That's.
Yeah.
ground removal. Yeah.
Yeah, think of all those homes lining that pond someday.
Yeah,
That's gonna be beautiful.
Lakefront property.
I mean, family,
That's skiing.
you don't get waterfront easily.
Yeah,
Um,
400 feet straight down.
and I don't know what combination of that, but there's a spot over there and we'll make the.
so yeah,
argument-
I mean, there's ridiculous, he's the math teacher, the amount of different configurations that can happen. Just tell me what you want. Do you want that to be
Yeah.
25 acres?
Yes.
Do you want this to be
That's what I'm
15
thinking.
acres?
You
Which,
want that to be the bigger spot?
Well, I think it makes sense. Yeah, I, you know, I have.
Everybody in the audience have any thoughts?
How big is that gravel site? It's enormous.
Looks big.
It's gotta be more than.
It's probably that whole
there's
parcel in
multiple
between.
Properties, the bird owns multiple properties over there, SM LaRusso, sorry, I know it's the bird incorporated.
So
But you've also got the houses off of 140 that you could.
do we run into the issue of splitting a parcel?
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, one of them is,
Is it
the
just-
one where it's like the majority of the earth removal is happening, that one is a pretty big site.
But you could be 27 or 28 or 9 or 30. I mean, like you said, it has to be more than 25.
Can't do it, cap it couple different.
Right.
55, 53.
So
We could do like 30 there and then only have to do 2 more at 10. That's not
And-
bad.
maybe one in the south of 495 and maybe one up at the north side of Route 1.
It's 233 acres.
Oh, ton.
There,
Where the main earth removal operation is happening. Is 233 acres.
and we can't take 30 of that and.
Again, I'm going to send
Check
you
it out.
the wording of it and you guys can,
Okay.
you know, interpret it how you want.
I think we've nixed the bottom right as all commercial. We don't want to touch that. That sounds like that's not the idea. Route 1 North could be, we don't want to touch the adult entertainment district.
Right, because
So,
the statement will like that, so.
3 corners of the town and some version of 20 plus in the 140 area and then some version of divided up 25 in partials on the others.
By the way, I know you don't like the idea of having by I-495 and South Street. However, you don't have to put the full 50 acres in. That could be one of your 3 parcels.
Yes.
Because it is in a very suitable site as part of your solution.
Which side are you speaking of?
One diagonally opposite from the mall.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the ones we're gonna, the junkyard one, you said.
Well, the Duddy property, potentially
There's something down
that's.
below the retail
What do you
development,
guys care?
the retail development that never opened. There's something in there at the bottom of that.
We wanna build nice houses for you to drive by.
The
instead of
Duddy
just a
property,
junkyard.
well, you know, as long as we get the rail trail going. It'd be great for everybody involved.
You gonna pedal in?
Fully agree,
Yeah.
I'd love to
Would
see
you?
it go.
Yeah.
Huh?
What, right now, I'm not driving on 1A.
Oh, There's
I mean,
bike trails there's bike lanes on Route 1, over by 495. You can
Bike
travel.
lane to nowhere.
Yeah, that's exactly, it goes along and then it just stops.
That
Unbelievable.
Notice how when they created that on-ramp, they didn't extend the bike lanes.
It just stops.
Yes,
So you can ride your bike, but it's only for like 150, 200 yards, and then you just gotta stop, turn around, go back.
yes.
Is that a strategy?
Like if I may, the only thing, I don't know if we should 100% take this piece off the table just yet. Only because when I spoke with Mr. Morgan at length, and he was telling me that when he's ready to retire, he is thinking of doing something new with this, not for the next few years, but when he's ready. It will pass to his son, and they may not maintain the business as is. And he was thinking of potentially developing it, so he had a lot of interest of if it gets rezoned as overlay, he would build in.
Big.
So out of the 2 Route 1 districts, that is the more permissive district. And I would be very concerned about, again, taking a commercial when that's the really good district. Besides C3, like that's a really, high, better uses, I guess. or-
How big is this parcel, do you know?
I think altogether they're like 20 something.
Oh, that's it? So we'd have to
Maybe a
use
little
all
bit more.
20 and then
I think
that's
he's got
350.
a few different parcels though.
I said all of them
Right,
together. I
right,
think
so-
it's about 20.
So we wouldn't have to use all 20, we could use 5 from this. Although I hear what you're saying.
Again, that would be my concern, and that's where you wanna put all of your, do what Foxborough did, put all of your, commercial, get that tax base up. So it takes that burden off of your residents. That's why you have a split tax rate,
Just wanted to put the plug in for him so that.
Yes.
Well, if we find that Route 1 North doesn't work, maybe we look at that one, or we could say maybe part of the.
Route 1 North. Are we adding Route 1? I had the
Yeah.
Bird property, DePlacido site and industrial, and then Duddy and Armitage. As the 3 sites.
Up here, there's something.
Yeah, you're writing these,
But
the
not-
East Street and,
I already said they were part of it.
Because of
I can see it.
current district.
So the East Street and,
no, that's 1A. Yeah, this area right here is where
That's
that is, yeah, that's,
Bill?
yeah, down by, on the other side of the hill from Serenity Hill.
Yep.
On the right there.
Okay.
I think if
Right.
we found a 5 acre or an 8 acre, 10 acre parcel down on that section, that was that owner. and it was carved out. It's a commercial zone, you've got a lot of it, but maybe residential, a small portion of residential someplace in there
Well,
wouldn't be the worst.
if they put in some residential and the right type of commercial, the residential could support the commercial,
So,
depending on what they put there.
Well, so the commercial that's allowed by right as part of the overlay, the MBTA overlay zoning is very minimal. It's not,
No, I'm saying. Take, whatever, let's for round numbers, 10 acres of.
oh,
the Gordon
gotcha,
property.
okay.
Make that the overlay. The rest of it, if you were to develop it commercially, that's not part of the overlay, if it were commercial, that would be supported by having a residential property there.
Yeah.
It would be a symbiotic relationship.
8, 8, and 9 on the other three, so we've got 25, 8, 8, and 9 possibilities or some version of those.
Yep.
So
5,
you want 25 to be on the earth removal. You want
25 and what?
25 to be on the earth removal property, Elysium
Yep.
Street.
Yep.
You want the DePlacido site and industrial, what do you want that acreage to be?
I don't know. I don't know that it makes sense to do the commercial, but
So we're taking.
maybe
DePlacido
we
and
look at the
industrial.
Placido and see, just to see if that is viable.
Oh, yeah. We're just getting that, so good.
I mean, I could look at the GIS and just see who the owners are, kind of see if there's any way to do it, just like I did with the.
Yeah, maybe we.
Well, it's not just, it's running it, I'm taking this and putting them through the compliance model, that's what I'm doing right now.
Or that figuring out, because you were saying there could be the multiple different owners and.
Oh, yeah, that's all, the
It's
ones,
gonna model.
they're all different owners on that one, the only one that's the one owner is that one large parcel that they're developing right now.
Okay.
And those are the rentals, they're duplexes and they're all rentals, it's 100 units.
It's be possible to just find 10 acres in the middle of that.
Okay. Is that what you guys want
It's worth a look.
on the DePlacidos? And then the Duddy Armitage, both, all of that?
Study or Armitage, you don't need it all. You could do 10 acres or something. 8 acres, 5 acres, what are you thinking? I like that I like the fact that it's smaller and doesn't necessarily impact us, but it's a junkyard where it needs to be cleaned
Oh,
up.
yeah, the
Well,
Armitage
you know, if
property.
anybody's gonna develop any of these properties, they're gonna have to be cleaned up.
You can get junkyards cleaned up and then a development in. Kind of a win, right? Win-win, yeah. And it's close to a T station and it's on a main road that can handle traffic.
But they're still driving into your downtown through 1A.
Right,
because-
but they're coming from 4 different parts of Wrentham. This corner, that corner, this corner, that corner. It's not all flowing in from one direction. That's been one of my concerns.
If I can throw out an opinion, on near 495 area, I like Armitage over resident or commercial that wasn't, because commercial that wasn't is already pretty and something could be done with it. Armitage isn't so much and probably needs a lot more cleanup.
How big is
Yeah, I'm
Armitage?
just thinking. If we
They
need
own a couple
acreage, but
different.
maybe we don't
parcels,
need,
and they're
maybe we don't need it.
zoned,
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a couple different ones. Let's see.
Maybe we look at the Armitage as a. We can get 10 acres or something out of that.
I didn't think it was that much.
Cause you had,
It's 8 acres, one of them is 8 acres. Do we own that
Okay, I
one?
was gonna say, because I know you had listed them out at one
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, one is 8 acres, the other is,
Oh, very well.
the other is 12 acres.
So there's 20 total.
And then what's the Duddy?
Okay.
Wrentham Crossing. Wrentham Crossing, it's 22 acres.
that's a big one, it's not huge.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
so the Armitage property is to 2 parcels totaling about 20 acres.
Yeah.
Study property is 22. So, yeah, I would not put them together. And to Joanna's point, you have a good point that the Duddy property is already, the buildings themselves may not be what somebody wants to develop, but the property itself is set for commercial development, whereas the Armitage property is,
Well, I've already had somebody reach out wanting to do that, develop that as multifamily. The zoning doesn't allow for it, so they'd have to do a zoning change.
Arbitrage, whatever it is.
The,
the Duddy property.
Study property, the Wrentham Crossing.
But maybe that doesn't make us develop for something better than that, and then we put, with the first
It'd be great if
parcel,
there was a hotel there, you know, it would be really great if there was a hotel. It's a perfect location for it.
Armitage is 2 parcels that make up 20.
Total, yes,
What are the 2 parcels? What size?
8 and 12.
So we could pick one of those. Maybe an 8 or a 12.
Essentially.
Or both, but that gives us some options.
Right. And a sizable piece of the 50 that we would, or 25 if we're gonna. So let's assume that we're gonna put the 25 up here, we need to find 25.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, that gives us the option of up to 20 of them right in that spot. I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we should put them all there. But we have that option, we
So
have
you
the
could
2
do 8 or
lots.
12 there, you could do maybe 10 acres at the Gordon property, I don't know what Route 1 North looks like, but. I mean, it sounds like we have enough that we start to now hone in on those as options.
And I would consider them to, when you're talking about one of the guidelines is underutilized properties. You know, it's a.
That one, yeah,
Sure.
that one probably,
And
but I have a feeling they're gonna, yeah, I don't think the junkyards are gonna go as you think they're gonna go, but let's include them.
That's.
We don't know until we know. I mean, you know, the state, the AG's office is gonna review the bylaw that we come up with and the
Right.
location. And then the EOHLC will review the whole entire bylaw. Your entire zoning bylaw to make sure there's nothing in there that is, you know, putting an undue burden on these types of projects. And for sure, they're gonna open up a website and see that it's a junkyard, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
He'd love to.
so they're.
I understand, yeah, they do, but no matter what, anything goes in there, commercial property or commercial business use that's allowed in the B2, they're gonna have to clean it up as well.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, regardless, the argument. It's not like a multifamily is gonna make it clean as opposed to a commercial isn't gonna make it clean. Either way, they have to clean up the site.
So, I don't see that that's necessarily putting it on burden.
No, I'm just, you
It
know,
has to be clean no
right.
matter what, and. You know, you can get into some of these other spots and find out that. There's stuff that needs to be cleaned and you know what's
yes,
there.
right,
So-
somebody didn't report that, oh.
Go figure. Next steps, we have a planning board meeting in what?
Next week, Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Are we okay with editing and updating these guidelines so we can share with the planning board? With the notes
Absolutely.
and get. To make sure everybody's in concurrence, and then we can update this. With what our findings are and the strategy we're thinking about to get aligned, and then if we get alignment with the planning board to say. Looks like a good strategy, then we go into actual parcel selections and into your modeling. Is that how that works?
Sure.
Unless you find
No.
something between now and then that says, yeah, that was a nice discussion, but it's not gonna work because.
So. How about, I like your. Your processes there, let's say, assuming that we don't come up with another. Roadblock that Rachel discovers as far as the law or. Things that have popped up in towns that have tried to do these things. Assuming that, yeah, I think you're right, I think we. Present these to the board. At our next meeting and then. As long as everybody's in sort of general agreement that we're heading in the right direction, then we can dig into the details of what we want to do in each of the particular spots, but.
I think we could build a really good story around it.
Yeah.
That, we say, are we trying to meet the guidelines? Yes. Are we trying to put it next to T station? Are we trying to, do these different things and protect the town from overdevelopment in one area? And it feels like we could make the right arguments. Anything else we need to think about from? So we're not going for pre-approval because we're not doing the town center. We could put that in here too, right? We're backed off the
We're
town
not doing
center.
the mandatory mixed use, so we don't need to do the 90 days,
Mhm.
which is good because we missed that one.
Yes.
But that was, when we kind of. You said that after you really crunch the numbers, we're not getting the reduction of units.
Yeah, and I, to be honest, I think in my initial presentation to you guys, I didn't recommend that location, but this has gone on for a long time, so you guys, I got
Well,
the twisties to quote, Simone Biles,
I think,
most decorated gymnast.
I think when you had done your initial, that had been sort of a plan B. I
Yeah.
don't think it was necessarily your first recommendation. And it's got its pluses and minuses.
Yeah, I did talk to, town council about, okay, well, what if we just put the, MBTA traditional 50 acres, 15 units per acre, because I think in total, of all the parcels, it's 50 acres down there, in the village zone B. And then we just enter into a development agreement with, the developers that we have right now. And we record it, so that makes it true, you're not gonna go forward with this 15 units per acre, yada, yada. The state could say no, because you're now putting a, restriction on it, that it's only this one developer. And then they could go away, and then we would be left open with the 15 units per
15
acre,
units
so.
per acre, no
It's too
commercial.
much of a risk, yeah, it's too much of a risk, it's never been anything that I've recommended at all.
Should we
I
go
don't want
forward
those that-
with the drafting of a zone change for that to 8 acres maximum?
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
mean, look at what you've gotten with the zoning where it's 15, where it's 5 minimum. You've still gotten 8 units per acre, so I don't see why you've been able to work with the developer to get 8 units per acre.
Well, like you
When
said, if
actually,
he goes
it
away and
equals out
somebody
to be
comes,
like 7.1.
if somebody comes in and it's a different developer and he goes, well, I'm gonna put 15, because you don't have a maximum.
Right, but that argument is the same right now, existing, and you're
They
able
still
to
have
get
to go
8
through the
units per
same
acre.
process that this guy did, where they come in with the
Yeah.
initial, like you just did. The,
You still have the special permit process.
I know, I was trying to protect it more, I guess. So what's the downside to saying, hey, we're rezoning? I know that development
Yeah,
would fit under the unlimited, but he's gonna do the 8 acres.
yeah,
and so if he went away and somebody else came in and said they wanted to do more, they still, this guy, they came in initially and they were talking about more.
Mhm.
And we said, we're not keen on that, and they came back, because we have that 2-step process with the approval where we have the initial one.
As long as we
just-
think we're protected.
we don't have to go beyond the first, we don't even get to the part where there's special permits.
Yep.
Involved,
Okay.
Just that initial, I can't remember what we called it,
the concept plan.
concept plan,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
That we can just say at that point, we don't
Yeah,
like it,
and
so
I
we're
think
not gonna go
with-
move forward with it.
With the amount of zoning stuff that you guys already have to deal with, let's not add this to your plate at all.
Okay. Just wanted to have the conversation,
Yeah, and
make sure we're not missing something.
I think we still have if we don't do the overlay down there, I think we still have the same control that we do now. I'm comfortable with it. Because we have the concept approval that has to happen before
yeah,
the big approval.
and a developer knows it's in their best interest to get you on board as well as the residents. I think everybody that has come in understands that this is gonna be a project that has a lot of eyes on it. And it is the jewel of the downtown,
Right.
so,
We've got one chance to do it right.
Exactly.
Do you want these updated so you can send them out on Friday with the, or you're off Friday, Thursday for the Wednesday planning board meeting, or do you want us to bring this updated information? Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
you don't. Yeah, you've got this up. Okay, yeah, that is only in a week. I think I have, I'll just try and summarize what we've talked about
I-
here, and
I
I can
can-
send it to you.
I can update this and give it to you.
Okay,
I can even play around with just some bubble stuff, and then if you have more detailed information you want to review on any particular, like, more honed in sites
yeah.
within those 4 areas.
What I can do is I can create sort of like, inset or something, close up maps of each of these areas, not really laying out any of the, sort of showing you where the excluded land is and the sensitive land is. I can do that, so that way you understand. If you see an excluded land, you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna take a lot out of our developable area. It doesn't count towards the 50 acres. You can maybe
Okay.
pivot.
You would send this out on Thursday afternoon, right, for the planning board?
Actually, I'm out Thursday. I'm at a conference, in Sturbridge. So I'll have to do this tomorrow.
Can't work remotely.
Yeah, I know. Well,
But
it's in Sturbridge and it ends at 5:30. I was like, there's a lot of comp time on that.
so if I can get this to you tomorrow, then we'll work it in. If not, we'll bring it to the meeting, right?
Yeah.
Bring it, are we meeting in person?
No, we're not.
All right, well, you're talking about bringing.
No, because actually, I'm on vacation and I'm gonna be remote in a hotel, so.
And I think we have new public hearings that have already advertised as, Zoom remote.
No,
So,
I just,
Yeah.
Lisa, bring it.
Bring it. Well, I'm getting used to in-person meetings now.
Well, yeah, because we've had 2 in
It's
4.5 years.
It's almost that's almost a run. It's almost a.
You see, we've been meeting live for the last year or more, so.
oh, yeah.
Any comments, English or? any
No, I mean,
thoughts?
I think, my concern from the start has been paralysis by analysis, and we need to move forward. And so we've got to give Rachel the ball to run with, and to run this through the test, I forget what you called it,
Why it's more.
compliance model. And make sure that there's no hidden surprises in there. Because that, if there are, so suddenly go, okay, this isn't gonna work. Now we're back over to square one, so. We're, in the immortal words of Marissa Tomei and my cousin Vinny, my clock is ticking.
Understood. Understood.
Such a good movie. Such a good movie.
It's a fantastic movie, and every time I go by, I stop and finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is my concern is that we've been kicking this thing around and we've had a number of different approaches. And thoughts on it. I think South Street, down, by, the mall, I think that's fine. I really don't believe that's gonna drive a lot of traffic up to the center of town. Frequently in the center of town, probably 4 mornings anyway, if not 5. And the amount of.
We're not coming to visit me.
Oh, come to Looking Glass, that's where the party is.
Oh, writing that down.
But the truck traffic, coming up from, what's now Holcomb or Wholesome it's astonishing. I mean, there's a lot of truck traffic right through the center of town. So that's different. That's commercial, but I don't see residential traffic saying, gee, I think I'll drive up to the center of town to go shopping at the coffee shop. So, at this point, no, once this gets done out back, things will change. But right now, I don't see that as a threat at all. I think is it Elysium or Elysium?
Elysium.
Elysium, the Elysium Street.
That's how we old timers here. Then again, we also say Armitage, not Armitage.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to,
I
yeah,
went to school with the Armitage.
like Target.
Cindy Thompson told me 20, so back in the day, I'm not Rob English on West Street. I'm the guy living in Howley Place.
Yeah, Jack Cowley's all that.
So,
There you go.
right.
Uh-huh.
So thank you, Chuck, for a little correction there, but I think Elysium Street is a great option. And I just want to make sure, nothing jumps out of the grass to bite us in the back of the calf.
Okay.
So yes, I endorse all three.
Kind of the strategy, Chuck.
I think there
You
was
good with where
five.
we are?
Oh, for you.
Yeah, no, I think.
Something we can move forward with.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I think it's got more advantage to it than some of the things that have been discussed, and
Yeah.
obviously it's still a work in progress, but I think this is a good way to move forward.
Rachel, anything before we get to public comment?
Two comments.
Name and address for the record.
On site location. And I made this comment earlier, so I'm sure it doesn't fall through the cracks. We really need to have 10% affordability requirement. We can't put ourselves behind the 8 ball by not having the 10% maintained.
Yeah,
That would be in our written
And in the,
bylaw.
and in the
for the
draft
overlay.
bylaw that I've already prepared, I did include that 10% in
Yeah,
there.
Good.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that goes without saying.
If you wanna do anything above that, that requires more work and more submission to the state.
Don't wanna lose
ahead of
ground, we
time.
wanna
Right,
maintain.
Right.
There's nothing to say that we can't get this in place at the 10 and then go back and do it at a 15, but right now, 10 is kind of, 10% is where we're at, with the time that we have
Right,
left.
and 10% is something that's not gonna cause conflicts with the submission and all that kind of stuff, because it's
You just
something.
gotta stop building these, these other single-family homes, market rate, single-family homes, and we'll be all set.
Yeah, but I mean, including the 10% in our bylaw is not something that's gonna, make the state jump back. because
No,
They've already allowed
10%
for it,
is
it's
what
already
is-
part
yeah.
of it, yeah.
10%
yeah,
is what's
I
allowed, and
think
you don't
we
have to do
absolutely-
anything additional
Yeah.
data.
I think we absolutely include that.
And the second point is, we have several different districts. And if there's a problem with any one of them, you might have a problem getting the full 50. I think we should keep as a fallback plan, perhaps it be part of the original site at I-495 and South Street. And not have 50 acres there, but have at a reduced level to allow us to get up to 50 for the total town. So I would not rule that out as impossible. I know you don't like it, Michael, but it is one that was vetted by
Understood.
consulting firm, and the other ones might be problematic, so we should keep that as a possibility, in my opinion.
I'm optimistic we're gonna find it in these different 4 sites, but thank you.
I think we as a town have come so far in the last month with this whole process. I'm super happy with where we're going. A month ago, if you look back, like, you had nothing,
Because
so.
of these in-person
Well,
meetings.
We had stuff. We didn't have nothing, we did have stuff, but.
We had too much stuff.
Yeah, I think, I was trying to, how do we just get this back in the box?
Yeah, no, I think this is, the last 2 sessions have been really beneficial.
Do we have somebody on the phone who has any comments on MBTA?
They left.
They left.
Boy, we.
That's a comment in itself.
We couldn't hold our audience. It's-
Any other thoughts or business before we close?
Do we need to, do we need to do meeting minutes? I keep seeing this
Yes.
showing up on our.
Yes, yeah, you keep getting more and more meeting minutes,
Yes.
I move,
but there's only 2 of you. Rob was not, present at any of them.
can we approve them with
Yeah,
only
go
2 of us? Okay.
That's 2 out of 3, that's majority.
That's true, you're right.
Move, we approve meeting minutes for our subcommittee meetings of February 27th, 2024, June 18th, 2024, July 16th, 2024, subject to typos.
I second.
Yeah.
Now we have to take a vote. You're abstaining.
Oh, I'm out. It's a-
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Chuck Woodhams and Mike McKnight are in favor, 1 abstention and no one opposed. The motion carries.
It's the easiest thing we did all night.
We have a motion
Exactly
to
how health feels.
conclude the MBTA Community Subcommittee meeting for this evening. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second, any discussion?
Do you wanna look at potentially,
Scheduling
another?
another one?
Yes,
Well, they,
In August?
they've been
Yeah.
productive.
What?
Sure, scheduling another one.
Oh,
It's kind of nice. and-
I don't know, let me look at my schedule. I'm good. I'm available. The Tuesdays.
When do you-
work well, right?
Tuesdays, yeah, or, I mean, it's a late.
14th, 13th?
August 13th.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a hold on that.
That's in between our meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty busy up till 4 o'clock. After that, it's fine. So we'll schedule that. We're in, let's see, do we have a motion in a second to close the meeting? Any other business, any other discussion?
Do we need to take a vote on the accepting that next one, or are we just gonna?
No, just go for it.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote? We'll do a roll call vote, Ms. English? Aye.